Good morning, doctor. How are you doing today, sir?
Good morning. And yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really excited to share a conversation with you because I find it very interesting, a book, Sober Love, and how to quit drinking as a couple, when there's a lot of relationships that started because of drinking. They were out partying. They met each other at a bar.
Right. That's right. That's very common. We live in a drinking culture. There's no question about it that we live in a drinking culture. The problem is that statistically we know that drinking has increased, with the pandemic.
Yep.
Considerably, and it hasn't slowed down. And Americans drink so much that that it's been said that America has a drinking problem, and that's true. So we live in a drinking culture where it's all around. But when couples get together, very often, there's sometimes that you're right, that they have a pretty severe drinking problem to begin with, in which case their relationship, if you will, with drinking takes precedence over their relationship together. And that's a formula for disaster as they try to move forward, because if they're really in love with drinking more than with each other, that's obviously going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But this book is for people who start off as more or less moderate, mild drinkers, okay? And they then progress over time thanks to living in this drinking culture, which encourages it. And at the beginning, they establish a relationship that's based on things like attraction, physical attraction,
Yep.
attraction to personality, sense of humor, sense of adventure. That draws them together. And that becomes what I call in the book their relationship, okay? There's you, me, and our relationship. Those things that bind us together, that made us into a couple, okay? And for a lot of couples, what happens with drinking is that thanks to being in this culture, it slowly progresses over time. Not quickly, but it slowly progresses over time. We used to think in terms of just alcoholism or non-alcoholism, but that's not correct. Drinking is a spectrum from very low-level drinking, which may be people meeting in the bar, to moving into what I call a mild misuse zone to moderate misuse zone. As they move along and they develop individually, this relationship with drinking, drinking becomes a friend.
Yep.
People will talk about
Yep.
that. Drinking is my friend. Well, as they move on and as drinking becomes more than a friend as individuals, it also begins to interfere with the relationship, with the things that they used to do that bounded them together, okay? And so what I do is, if I have someone come into my office for help with a drinking problem, I'll ask them if their partner drinks. And if the answer is yes, I'll then say, well, why don't you invite your partner in so we can talk a little bit about this together? And that's my starting point, where I start to talk about, well, how much did you used to drink when you first got together? How much do you drink now? And doing an honest assessment of how much do you drink now. And then I take this next step, which is, how has it affected your relationship? Not only has drinking affected you, have you gained weight? Do you have trouble sleeping? Those common symptoms of alcohol. But what about that third end? What about your relationship? Okay? How has sex been affected over time by drinking? Okay? How has other forms of intimacy, just spending time together, talking? What about the things you used to like to do when you first got together? How often do you do them together now? So taking a look at that third entity, and then I say, well, you have a choice. You fell in love based on that relationship. Do you love the relationship enough now to make a bold move, which is to decide to become, instead of a drinking couple, to become a sober couple?
Yeah.
And I asked them to think about that, and that's a bold move. They realize, once they have that insight, that it really has affected their relationship, that they are more open to it. And also the success rate becomes much greater, because at that point, they're really working together towards a common goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like one person saying, well, I'll help out because you have a problem, but I don't have the problem. That's too often the case. Someone goes in for rehab, they come home, and their partner says, well, you have the problem, you have to stop drinking, but I don't. Okay? And so that's a very common, occurrence. But what's missing there is the relationship. And that's what sober love is about. The starting point is making that decision. And then, of course, making that decision is one thing, but following it through, the book really then focuses on a lot of issues, that a couple needs to deal with, a lot of bridges they need to cross, even beginning with simple things like, rearranging a house, getting rid of the liquor. If they have a bar, converting it into a bookcase, maybe changing the way they, if they have 2 chairs that they used to sit in every night and drink, well, maybe they need to change those chairs. Mm-hmm. So sometimes there's some renovations that need to be done to support, a sober couple. But then it goes on to a lot more deeper issues like intimacy, sexual intimacy. Where is that? What's happened to that, and how to rediscover that? What about shared pleasures? What about the things you used to do? How about rediscovering those or coming up with new ones that are going to support your sober lifestyle? If you have children, what about your family life? Okay, how has it affected your family life, and what do you want to do to change that? So there's a lot of issues that couples need to face, and the point of the book is that to give them some guidelines so they don't feel like they're kind of lost at sea as to what to do.
Okay, please don't move. There's a lot of incredible information that he wants to share with you right around the corner. We'll be right back. What about the couples where the wife or the husband looks at the other and says, I notice that you drink a lot when we're here at home, but I don't see you drinking a lot when you're away from home. Do we have a problem here in the house? And I just feel that there's a lot of couples that go through that.
Yes, there is. But again, the starting point is okay. And somebody may say defensively, people get defensive about their drinking. We all know that. Yeah. And they may say, well, I'm not an alcoholic, so I don't have a problem. And I begin the book with that spectrum. It's not like, you have to be an alcoholic to become a sober couple. You don't. And so even though they say, well, I only drink at home, I don't drink outside, that's not the point. The point is, what was your relationship like in the beginning, and what's it like now, and what do you attribute that to? Sometimes people attribute it to all just getting a little older. And I say, well, wait a minute, what about drinking? How has that, what role does your relationship with drinking play in how your relationship has changed? So, I understand that people get defensive. I only drink wine, I don't drink hard liquor. But you drink hard liquor. So my point is, again, that may be true, and you may not, have a severe problem as the other person does, but how has your relationship changed? And are you willing to consider changing this identity? In our culture, it's normal to be a drinking couple, but there's more and more couples, I point out, and individuals, by the way, who are willing to change that identity from being a drinking couple to being a sober couple, and individuals who are willing to change their identity from being a drinking person to a sober person.
Wow. So you're saying that part of the healing process is actually to rebuild that relationship, to make it stronger,
Exactly.
to make it... See, I've never heard that before, and that's why this book is so important.
Well, thank you. I think it is, because it's a lot of it has to do with what was your relationship like, what drew you together to have this third identity relationship, and how has it changed, and what do you need to rebuild? And not only rebuild, but what do you need to add? There may be things you want to add to it. But the point is, it means being sober is only the starting point, because you have to rebuild your relationship with a new identity.
Wow. 10 minutes with you is not enough time. Where can they go, doctor, to find out more? Because they're going to have the book in front of them. They're going to take notes, but they're going to have questions. Is there a place for them to go?
Well, there's my contact information on my website. I would suggest that a good starting point is to go to the appendix, and if you're curious about something, check out some of the references that I include in the appendix.
You got to come back to this show anytime in the future, doctor. The door is always going to be open for you.
Well, thank you.
Excellent. Well, you be brilliant today, okay? And thank you so much for this book, because it is going to change lives.
Well, I think so. I appreciate that very much.